Hey guys, it's Kira and today I'm going to talk you through some of the book series that I'm hoping to read in 2020. Now, some of these series are ones that I have started mostly last year but just haven't managed to finish yet, and then other ones are ones that have just made their way onto my TBR because I've heard great things about them and I'm just really looking forward to hopefully reading them this year. So the first series I'm hoping to tackle is the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, which I'm currently about midway through. Now obviously this is a series that I can't finish until George actually releases the final two books, but I am hoping to get through all of the books that are actually currently out and published and out there in the world. Now, the last one that I read was the second part of A Storm of Swords, which was maybe at the end of summer last year, so it's been a while since I last picked up one of these books, and I was really enjoying the series. I was kind of getting through like one a month, which I started in May, so I made my way through, I believe, 4 of the books because A Storm of Swords is split into 2 parts, and I was really loving them all, but as it started getting towards autumn time, I was very aware of the fact that I was still quite far away from my Goodreads reading goal, and I really didn't want to miss out on it, so I kind of abandoned reading any longer books, which these ones definitely are, because I just needed to read shorter books that I knew I was going to be able to get through quickly because I wanted to reach my Goodreads goal, which I did, so it was definitely worth it. But now that we are kind of like just at the beginning of a new year, I want to try and start getting back into some of the bigger books that I kind of abandoned or ignored at the end of last year. So continuing on with the A Song of Ice and Fire series is at the top of my list. Next up we have The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater, which I started reading in spring of last year, and I obviously started out with The Raven Boys, and I remember absolutely loving this book. The plot was just so intriguing and the book just felt so dark that I was just sucked in straight away, because you've just got these 5 high school students who are kind of all brought together by this mystical quest that they all kind of set out on, and I just was so intrigued by both the characters and the plot, and I just loved the whole book, and I enjoyed this story so much that I was super excited to carry on reading The Raven Cycle. But I actually waited a few months before I moved on to the next book, mostly because I was trying not to buy too many books and to focus on my current TBR. So it ended up taking me up until I think the summertime, maybe like July or early August, when I finally picked up The Dream Thieves. But quite unlike my experience with The Raven Cycle, The Dream Thieves ended up being a real struggle for me to get through. It just didn't feel like a particularly enjoyable reading experience. However, I do have to say that I was reading that in the middle of a heat wave in summer, and I just remember reading in general was really difficult because it was so warm that nowhere felt comfortable, and it was just not very enjoyable to read in general. So The Dream Thieves was not an enjoyable reading experience for me, so I kind of have put off continuing on with The Raven Cycle, but I feel like maybe what I need to do is buy the other books in the series and try and read them all in close proximity to one another and just really get into the story, because I've heard so many people love The Raven Cycle, and I obviously enjoyed the first book so much that I really want to see what the rest of the books are about and just see how the story concludes. So I really do want to get back into it, give The Dream Thieves another try, and just carry on with this series. And then the final book that I've got, which is part of a series that I've already started, is the Seven Waters, I want to say trilogy, but I feel like there might even be more than 3 books in this series. But that series starts out with this book, Daughter of the Forest, which I started reading back in summer last year because I was taking part in Myth Take Reads, which is an amazing book club run by Charlotte and Ashley, who I'll link down below, because the book club is great if you're interested in anything to do with myths and folklore, because the book club basically focuses on reading retellings of these myths and folklore tales, and one of those was this book, Daughter of the Forest, which follows along a story where this girl, Circa, who is a young girl, the youngest of 7, where she has, or even the 8th child, she has 7 older brothers who are basically there to protect her because her mother died in childbirth, and she has this amazing relationship with them. But then one day they are cursed and turned into swans, and she is the one that has to try and save them by undertaking a really difficult task, and that task is made even more difficult by the fact that she isn't allowed to speak and must complete the task entirely on her own. And so you have this incredible saga and quest of this character who's trying to save the people that she cares most about, whilst also undertaking the extreme difficulty of the fact that she can't actually communicate with the outside world in the way that she has become so accustomed to, and so she has to find these new ways of communicating. So it was a really incredible incredible story and one that I enjoyed way more than I expected to. But the book is set in a place called Seven Waters. That is where Circa and her family are from. And so the book that continues after this in the series is set at Seven Waters. And I think there's a lot of books set there, which Juliette Marillier kind of builds up not only Circa, but all of the other characters that we're introduced to as well. So I'm really interested to get into that series because I enjoyed reading Daughter of the Forest so much, and it was such a surprising read for me because I really didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And so for that reason, I would love to read more of Juliette Marillier's writing and sort of delve more into that world that she built up, because it was so intriguing and so incredible. So moving on to some of the series that I haven't even started yet. The first one is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which is a book that I've been meaning to read for so long now, particularly because I haven't read anything by V.E. Schwab yet, and I feel like I'm really missing out because she sounds like an incredible author, and her books all sound really dark and really intriguing, and often they're quite dystopian in their style, which is everything that I love. And so I don't know why I haven't read any of her books yet, but this is one that sounds particularly interesting because I believe it is a dystopian which is set in a world where there are 3 parallel Londons, each of which are very different from one another. And you have this main character who is one of a few people who is able to transport himself between the 3 Londons. And so it's a really interesting concept, and one that I can't wait to get into. I believe it's part of a trilogy, and this is of course the first book in the series, but it sounds so interesting. I love dystopians, I love dark books, and I'm really interested to read something by V.E. Schwab because people love her so much, and I really want to get in on that because it sounds like I'll really enjoy her work. Next up, I've got a series which I actually don't have any of the books for just yet. I actually need to buy them, but that series is so hyped up, and it's one that I've been wanting to read for a while now but just haven't gotten around to, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, I actually don't know too much about The Diviners aside from the fact that it is so well loved and people find it so interesting. All I really do know is that I think it's an urban fantasy set in 1920s New York with some kind of like magical elements thrown in there, and that sounds really compelling and interesting, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. But yeah, I don't know much about it, but I know that it is a very well loved series, and it's one that I certainly want to get in on because I just really want to know what is so great about it, and it sounds intriguing, so I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to that at some point in the near future. And next up, we've got a series which I think was concluded very recently. I feel like the final book in this trilogy came out at the beginning of this year. I might be wrong, but I believe that's the case. And that series is the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. Now, I've been delving more and more into the murder mystery genre recently, and it's been a genre that has been really intriguing me, and it's been one that I've been wanting to read more of. And so I really want to get into this book series because it sounds so interesting and certainly fits into that murder mystery genre. Now, if you're not aware, Truly Devious basically follows this young girl called Stevie who starts out going to this amazing school called the Ellingham Academy, which is a kind of unusual and unorthodox school in which people don't necessarily have to be amazing at everything, they just have to excel in their one particular area. So for Stevie, that area is the fact that she's an incredible detective, and she arrives at Ellingham to try and solve a historical case of kidnap and murder that happened there many years ago. And then she arrives at the school, but not only has to try and figure out this historical mystery, she's then also faced with a modern day copycat killer as well, who tries to make the situation even more difficult. So it sounds like a really interesting and complicated murder mystery. And I believe this is a book that has dual timelines. So we have both the original timeline of the first crime taking place, and then also we have the modern day one with Stevie trying to figure out what's going on and solve these mysteries. And of course, this mystery takes place over 3 books as it's part of a trilogy, so I'm really looking forward to getting into it and just sort of unpicking all of the detail, because I feel like it's going to be a very complex and multi-layered mystery, which I'm really looking forward to getting into. And then, not to shock anyone, but the final series that I'm hoping to get to in 2020 is one that was huge when it was originally published. It was so popular, and it was turned into a film series, which was even more popular, and it's now making a comeback with a prequel, and that is, of course, if you haven't guessed it, the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. Now, of course, as you'll know, the Hunger Games was huge. It was literally everywhere, everyone knew about it, and if you didn't read the books, you'd watch the films. And I was in that category where I watched the films and was really interested by the story, but for some reason the books just weren't on my radar. I just didn't think to pick them up, and so I kind of got through the hype of the Hunger Games just watching the films and never really thought to pick up the books. I had this exact same issue with Harry Potter, where I've always loved the movies, but just didn't get around to reading the books till much later for no apparent reason. Can't really tell you why, just didn't happen. And now that the prequel is coming out for The Hunger Games, I just feel like it's finally time to read those books, because I love dystopians and I feel like I'll definitely enjoy the story because I already know that I'm interested in the plot from the films. So I think it's finally time to delve into the universe of The Hunger Games and finally read those books, and I'm hoping to read them in the next couple of months before the prequel comes out, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that series. So there we have it. Those are some of the book series that I'm hoping to either start or finish in 2020. Now let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these book series and what you thought of them, because I would love to hear your thoughts. And if not, let me know if there are any series that you're going to be trying to finish or start reading this year. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.